Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We turn now in the Johnson edition to poem number 243, I've Known a Heaven Like a Tent. Now, this is a fascinating little poem because we're going to talk about circus tents and the ways in which circus tents and their collapsing and the circus moving away is a symbol for something that one has, that one hopes for, that one enjoys, and then is gone. Now, in that regards, this is going to be a poem worth our study. Some have called this another sunset poem. Some have called this a poem about loss. When it was published in the London Mercury in February of 1929, certainly there was challenges, I think, as to exactly how one interprets a little poem like this. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked with our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through the preceding 242 poems. We just finished with 242 when we stand on the top of trees. The sunset in this poem is kind of like taking down the circus tent, and we'll talk a little bit about this. And of course, the focus is in large measure on the disappearance. That is to say, like a bird flying away on the horizon. And in the end, some of you will say, I think this poem is actually about the loss of poetic inspiration. And we'll maybe want to think even about Keats's Ode on a Nightingale in that regards. She says it this way: I've known a heaven like a tent to wrap its shining yards, pluck up its stakes, and disappear without the sound of boards or rip of nail or carpenter, but just the miles of stair that signals a show's retreat in North America. No trace, no figment of the thing that dazzled yesterday, no ring, no marvel, men and feats, dissolved as utterly as birds far navigation discloses just a hue, a plash of oars, a gaiety, then swallowed up a view. Now, it is true that this poem is going to talk about the loss first of a circus and a circus tent and the traveling circus tent, and then of course the loss of the bird on the horizon. What really is it that she's talking about? Well, note the irony. A few moments ago we were with poem 239. You'll remember, heaven is what I cannot reach. And now she'll tell us that she has known a heaven. Some will say heaven here is not the heaven of afterlife, but rather maybe the heaven of some kind of good thing happening in one's life. I've known a heaven. And then, like a tent to wrap its shining yards, the cross beam supporting a circus tent would be the yard there. Some have read this as the yards, as in the grounds themselves. Pluck up its stakes and disappear. Notice we'll go from disappear to dissolve to swallowed up at the end, right? Without the sound of boards. In other words, you know, the tents, the circus would come in, and, you know, we've kind of lost this in large measure, I fear, even in small communities that used to look forward to the circus. We in Whirlin used to have this kind of thing, and then less and less it happens. But in the old days, and certainly Emily is going to talk about this, and obviously Barnum and Bailey made this very famous, where they would come in, they would set it up, it was a big to-do, and of course the circus was the thing that everyone was so excited about. But now we're not talking about the circus, but its departure, right? The word "or" is fascinating, and some have read this poem as actually Emily's analysis of a certain kind of loss of theological hope or faith because of the next line. Or she's just talking about how the boards no longer, we hear the sound, rip of nail or carpenter, and some have said, well, that's going to elicit a certain kind of referencing to Jesus Christ, who was the son of a carpenter. But all that's left now, miles of stair. It's one of those amazing lines, miles of stair. In other words, nothing is seen for a long ways around. The empty lot, if you will. That signalize a show's, notice the capital letters here, retreat in North America. Now, Emily only uses the word America 3 times in all of her poetry, here and then in poems 555 and 1705. So that's kind of, and 1705 I believe is the South America reference. So she doesn't reference the way Whitman will reference America in his poetry very often. By the way, if you're looking for some kind of a rhyme here with stare and America, the New England pronunciation would actually be Americur. So it would be stare and Americur, so that the rhyme would work. Then the break. Then notice these no, no, no. See, no, notice 4 of them. No trace, no figment of the thing that dazzled yesterday. By the way, we're going to see dazzled when we hit poems 393, 431, 473, and 727. Her use of that word dazzled will be significant. That dazzled yesterday, and then we're back to the circus again. No ring, no marvel. Obviously, lots of fun things happening at the circus. Men and feet dissolved as utterly as, now we get to our final simile, bird's far navigation discloses just a hue, a plash of oars, a gaiety, only used by the way of that word in all of her poetry. Then swallowed up of view. Now, are we talking here about the loss of poetic inspiration? Are we talking about the loss maybe of religious faith, the referencing of the carpenter? A lot of that I'll leave to you. Here's what I think we can say, though, about this poem at 2a, that it is sad to watch the things that we love go away, dissolve, and the like. At 2b, the 2 similes are fascinating. First of all, the circus tent, and then, of course, the flight of a bird. At 3a, go back to our study of Keats's Ode on Ode to a Nightingale. As the bird is flying away, you'll remember, into the air, and is singing, but farther and farther away, we hear the singing, right? That's an interesting way to read this poem. Finally, at 3b, to own a poem like this, what was a time in your life when you had to deal with something being swallowed up? And to what degree were you able to deal with that? I hope reading Emily helps in that regards. Thank you.